Hi there. If you're listening to this message is specifically for you.
Thank you for listening to The Cob. I'm Sharan, and I co host this with Sudeep.
We've been at it for some time, and we really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for listening to us and making us reach thus far.
And we'd love to know a lot more about you and what you would like to hear from us.
And hence, please take just 2 minutes of your time and fill this form. The links are in the comments or in the show notes. It will help us recognize who you are and also get your expectations so that we can craft the podcast content to satisfy those expectations.
Welcome to Corp, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chabla and Sharvan Raghavan.
I've had enough of you, Sudeep. There
Why
is
is that?
because there was so much pressure when we were working together. And now that we're on the show, and you just there seemed to be too much perfection around you. And everything you do is organized and like productivity king. So I'm going to take this episode to get you to talk about the mistakes you made in your career.
Okay. Very happy to, Sharon.
So give me at least 5 mistakes you've done in your career so far. How long has it been? 18 years? 17 years?
Since I started 17 years, yes.
Yeah. You must have made at least 5 mistakes.
Oh, I have made plenty for the listeners who are listening to this. The purpose is not to grant you your wish or to make you feel better, make Sharan feel better. It is about sharing this with the hope that all of you will possibly reflect on it, learn something out of it, and possibly get to make some original mistakes and not repeat the ones that I made in my career.
I like the positive frame you're putting to all the mistakes you're going to list. I'm
Yeah,
just
of
waiting. I'm
course.
just rubbing my hands right now.
Okay, so these are the ones that I made in the first 5 years of my marketing career. From the time I joined marketing team in 2009
Mhm.
to the time I first moved out of my marketing stint in 2014.
Okay.
So these were all made in that period when I was working with Mondelez
Hmm.
and Cadbury. There are obviously plenty of other mistakes and some pretty costly ones that I've made at my current organization as well. But that's a tale for another day. I'll possibly record another podcast which will say my 5 most expensive mistakes. Yeah, but we'll talk about that
Cool.
possibly later.
Yes.
Okay. So the first one, and I think that we have spoken about this a little bit when we were speaking about how to become a better marketer. But this is something that I learned from my first boss, and I fell into this trap as soon as I moved into marketing, which is about being busy versus busy being productive.
You brought this up about the 5 skills a marketer needs to have.
Correct.
Yes.
So when you suddenly move from sales into marketing, sales is operation heavy, and then suddenly you move into marketing and you don't have much to do.
Oh.
So you're suddenly wondering, what am I supposed to do? There are no immediate deliverables. There are
Hmm.
no deadlines to meet immediately.
There are no
There's no
targets to meet on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
there's no billing to look at. Even if you are
Exactly.
not meeting your targets, there's no billing to look at. So what do you talk to people about, etc., etc. I tended to fill this dull dullness in my life
Hmm.
with activity.
Okay.
So I got busy with all sorts of random things. There's this thing that the marketers experience for the first time where people come to them with shade cards.
Ah.
Yeah, so they will give you shade card of your SKU and they will ask you to approve light, medium, dark. So then you sit and compare light, medium, dark. Like an idiot, I'm comparing if there is difference between the three artworks or they've made any mistake. Otherwise, you're just supposed to say, is the light too light and is the dark too
Too
dark
dark.
as compared to the standard. That's the only thing that you need to do.
Right.
And it's just a 2 minutes job. And the only thing that you need to do is go into the natural light and look at it there.
Hmm.
Here I am spending half an hour, 45 minutes on it. So I could find myriad such non-value adding activities,
Hmm.
and I became busy
Yeah.
doing them, and I was feeling happy that I'm occupied versus when a boss came and sat with me and he asked me, okay, where do you think your brand stands,
Hmm.
and support it with data.
Hmm.
And suddenly the only data I could refer to was sales data, which frankly beyond a point doesn't hold any water in marketing
Marketing
parlance.
conversations. Yeah.
So therefore I was suddenly taken aback,
Hmm.
and then I got that royal thrashing that my first boss was famous for. uh, and he made me understand that this is what a marketer is supposed to do.
Hmm.
These are the things that you look at, this is what you ponder over, this is what you discuss with other people,
Right.
because there are no formulas which will help you teach interpretations of marketing data.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is very very perspective based and context based. So you need to know the background, you need to talk to other people, take their help in interpreting it, etc., etc.
Right.
Slowly it dawned on me that what I was doing was completely wrong, and there are very different set of things that I needed to do. So needed to look at marketing data, needed to go meet the consumers, talk to
Yeah.
them about the brand, etc., etc. So the lesson I would like to leave with all the marketers is to evaluate what is keeping them busy every day. Think about it, whether it is really value adding to the brand or not, and then possibly recalibrate, ask others, recalibrate, and find out what are the key things that you could do which will add tremendous value to your brand and help it move forward in consumers mind.
Absolutely. There is this joke saying in sales you use Excel sheets and
Huh.
in marketing you use PowerPoints.
Yeah.
So how much of Excel you're stuck with is enough of a sign saying, are you still in the sales mindset, or have you moved on to thinking about your brand when you're using PowerPoints? So this joke has stayed with me forever.
Interesting. It's a good way of looking at it. Excellent. So that was the
Yes.
first mistake that I made.
Okay.
The second one, when I started gaining more confidence in marketing and I started believing that, marketing can really change the world.
Hmm.
Even if you can't change the world, you can change the face of your brand and the fortune of your brand, etc., etc. And therefore, you start getting busy in marketing proposition work,
Hmm.
start understanding your consumers, etc., etc.
Right.
But you're still looking for that sweet spot
Hmm.
where, while you're doing fundamentally value adding marketing work, but you're not able to move the metrics in sales immediately.
Hmm. True.
Yeah. My second mistake was that I was flying solo for quite a bit of time.
What do you mean by that?
As in, I was trying to do work on the brand.
Okay.
I was trying to fight competition via this new offering called Gem Surprise.
Hmm.
I was trying to, get work on Gem's proposition. I was trying to find need spaces where Gems could extend, etc., etc.
Okay.
While all of that was good, I was not able to move any metric on the
Hmm.
ground. Yeah,
Got
in
it.
terms of
Hmm.
sales, etc. Sales was happening on its own, and I had very little contribution to add to it apart from schemes, etc., that were running.
Okay.
And one of my laments at that point in time was that Gems was one of the smaller brands
Hmm.
and therefore used to get very limited focus from the sales team.
Right. The salesman wasn't pushing it enough.
Yeah, and more importantly, there used to be this big hit
Hmm.
brand every month,
Right.
and Dairy Milk and Five Star, Bonvita would get two big hits a year or three big hits a year because the sales team wanted to pick it up and run with it. It will give them great value
Right.
additions. And my clear complaint to my boss and to sales head was that Gems isn't getting sufficient big hits, or it isn't getting any big hit at all.
Okay.
Yeah. And therefore, I was doing what a marketer could do without worrying about anything else.
Hmm.
So that was a big mistake that I made. And there was this incident where my boss changed,
Mm-hmm.
and the new boss told me that while you do whatever you're doing, the real win will come when you're able to add marketing flavor to activations that happen on the ground, which
Okay.
can really move the sales metric on a daily basis. For example, whatever my thinking from a marketing point of view was,
Hmm.
if it translates into some kind of actionable deliverable on the ground immediately,
Hmm.
it would really give brand a big fillip, because one, you're doing an activation, it will give you some amount of gains. And number two, because you're doing it from a brand lens, it is more thematic and the gains are likely to stay with you. I think this is a mistake that I was making repeatedly. And I went and cried to my boss, etc., etc. So he pushed back and said, okay, you know that summers are a bane for chocolate category. No chocolate wants to activate during summers.
Right.
Yeah. And May is the toughest month. He said, gems doesn't melt. So therefore, why don't you take up May? And nobody is going to want it. Make May big. So we said, okay, let's do that. So me and one of my dear friends now, who was my customer marketing partner or shopper marketing partner at that point in time, Samir Yadav, joined hands, and we created this thing called Mayhem. And I remember we used to do the ever highest thing was about 500 tons of gems, 506 tons of gems, 506 or 511 tons of gems.
Okay.
And we said that this May we will create mayhem and we will do 600 tons of gems.
Wow. Okay.
Right, in summers. And we did it thematically to say that there is this competitor that we are trying to fight. And you don't fight competition just by having a like to like offering.
Right.
You also fight competition by grabbing more share on the shelf, making sure that you increase your visibility, and then put things above that price point, below that price point, etc., etc. And hence the entire might of gems needs to counter this particular competition versus just one SKU of gems. If we have to fight Kinder Joy, it can't just be with Gem Surprise. So like to like, there is an offering, but when we activate the entire gems.
Right.
And we this was the theme that we built, and therefore we designed some sell-in schemes, designed some visibility elements, excited the whole sales team. Samir Yadav and I joined hands together. So all of that really made sure that the ground team was sufficiently excited about it. And they went about executing in a manner which I never thought I'll ever be able to see on the ground. And we easily surpassed the 600 ton mark. And for the next few years, mayhem became a theme.
So every May you got the same.
Every May we got this.
Wow.
Now we need to scale it up now. So it almost became like a property. Right. Then I discovered that flying solo while you were doing value adding work, it wasn't really creating a significant difference on the ground. So therefore, every time you do some kind of a marketing work,
right,
always combine it with good, exciting, thematic on-ground activation to really move the needle on the ground.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant point. And I'm liking how you're changing all your mistakes into the positive corrections you've made. But this point also goes back to our previous episode we did on build your own super brand, saying you don't need to invest in advertising all the time. Now, investing in sales, taking your marketing brains, your marketing application into the market to activate sales itself is a brand proposition that you're building in the market. And that, I think it's beautifully captured here, saying how mayhem became a property even within the system.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. No, now I want to go back to mistakes.
Yeah. So this was the second one. Okay. Within this second one, when I was trying to do mayhem, I found endorser in my customer marketing partner as well as my sales director. All of them were happy that, okay, do something in May because anyways, nothing else happens.
Right.
I should have picked it up then, but an important one that I learned later is that you need to find endorsers for yourself or your plans within the leadership team and the sales team, etc.
Right.
And that is where the power of segmentation, which a marketer should know, comes in handy.
How does segmentation build sponsors?
Yeah. So for a very long period of time, when I was working on launching Gem Surprise, I kept going to my sales head, kept showing him my mix. He would put me in front of the entire sales leadership. They would give me some
feedback,
something to work upon. I will go back, work upon it, and then again go back. So it was kept going into that loop. Yeah. Later I realized that the reason it got into that loop was this wasn't the greatest priority for the entire sales leadership team. Now in this entire thing, the one person who was desperately interested in what I was doing was the head of modern trade, Mr. Ashish Peshrodi, at that point in time. So at that point in time, I should have immediately understood the power of segmentation, that find segments even within the sales leadership team or
Hmm.
marketing leadership team who seem to be a little more closer to your cause, who possibly could champion your cause, and who will allow you to build islands of executional excellence. You don't need to please everybody.
Thank you for listening to Cobb, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobbcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.
This is one project I was working on. We were making the Harpic bathroom cleaner, the spray version of it. We would have made like 3 or 4 designs as the first set of options. All of them got rejected by the senior board members. And you wouldn't believe. I think we did about 9 iterations of the same design.
Oh.
And it just wasn't getting approved by the leadership team. And then we realized the leadership team did not need to approve this because
Okay.
because the surface cleaner within Harpic is a pretty small business and it's only in India. So we basically reached out to the India team and said, "Can you please test this with consumers locally?"
Hmm. Hmm.
They said, "For such a small brand, we don't want to test it. This looks perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and launch because we need to get to the market faster." And once we had convinced the India team, then nobody had any problem with any of the iterations of the designs.
Correct.
And because this just wasn't priority for the board members who were talking about it. It was just the wrong audience.
Yeah.
And the moment the India team realized that this was going to give them a bigger lift within the bathroom cleaner segment, they were sponsoring this on our behalf. And I think this is something that's very, very important to learn, to say, buy your audience first, as in get them on your side first, and then use them as the sponsors to fight the larger battles.
Yeah. I think the power of smaller pilots, the power of finding champions for your cause, the power of starting small is
Right.
significantly understated.
Hmm.
It is okay to launch in one state, one area, one channel, etc. Create a success story, then the whole world will come after you to say, okay, now please give it to me because I think this can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was the third one.
Hmm.
The fourth one is a little more serious in nature.
Okay.
The mistake that I made was that I took the brand promise lightly. We had this global mandate from the Mondelez team to relook at the chocolates or eclairs branding. We were also for a fairly long time trying to find that how can we create some kind of product truth which will delight the consumers. Yeah. So we had done the chocolatey path couple of times.
Hmm.
And this time around we decided that we will make the caramel non-sticky.
Hmm.
And alongside making it non-sticky, we would also rebrand it and make it synonymous with how it is known across the world by and
Right.
large as chocolates. So our brand promise was that now eclairs has become chocolates,
Hmm.
and it is it is significantly less sticky. So when we started with this was the
Hmm.
concept.
Right.
But as we kept getting deeper into creative realm,
Hmm.
it became chipakta nahi hai,
Hmm.
which means that it does not stick.
It's supposed to be chipakta come.
Yes.
Come. Ah,
So
right.
it became a creative leap. While there's no problem with creative leap, you don't take leap with brand promises.
Got it.
While we went ahead with it and we created a TVC, we said Cadbury eclairs ban gaya Cadbury chocolates और अब ये चिपकता नहीं है.
Hmm.
And even when I was shooting that ad,
Hmm.
the person who stars in that ad, he was playing the judge in our
Hmm.
ad. And in one of the shots, he's supposed to eat
Hmm.
chocolates
Hmm.
and say, chipakta nahi hai.
Hmm.
So we gave him chocolates. Couple of
Hmm.
times he had to redo.
Hmm.
And every time we gave it to him, he said, अरे दोस्त ये अभी भी चिपक रहा है. Yeah, he gave me a feedback there and then.
Right.
But we told him, no, no, this is a trial sample. The actual sample will be better, etc., etc. But then once we launched, I think one or two consumers also wrote to us saying, no, no, this is still sticky, etc., etc. So I think that is where I made a mistake as the upholder of customer voice in the marketing room.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was supposed to stand up for this.
Got it.
Yeah. And I should have caught this earlier and would have should have pushed the creative team to find a better articulation.
Hmm.
So that's a mistake that I made, of going down that path and really compromising on the brand promise.
Hmm. Very, very clear. But now, what's the opportunity cost here?
I think the opportunity cost is that if you are able to uh, articulate your brand promise really well,
Hmm.
and if the customer resonates with the brand promise as well as its articulation,
Hmm.
it can really take the brand to a different orbit.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, when I launched this, Chocolates was coming back after significant uh, capacity constraint.
Hmm.
So it triggered significant growth because anyways the bases were low. But
Right.
who knows? Sky's the limit in some of these categories. There is no
If the product actually
barrier to,
fulfilled the promise,
yeah.
it
So
could
there
have
is no
driven
barrier
even
to
further.
frequency or penetration.
Right.
So we could have done maybe even significantly more volumes
Right.
if we would have stuck with the right articulation of our brand promise.
Very, very true. And it's also very easy to miss something like this because every marketer wants to put out some very creative, catchy, sticky communication all the time.
Yeah.
And when you work with agencies who are so well entrenched into the brand and the systems that you operate in, it's very easy to let these things kind of slip
Yeah.
because you are caught up in the excitement of putting this creative together. And this is such a slight nuance, right? It's like chipakta nahi hai, but right, actually it was sticky, but it was sticky less sticky. But the promise ended up saying it was not sticky.
Yeah.
Significant difference in that, and I think it's a very good lesson for people to keep in mind. And I like how you've not turned it into a positive story.
Hmm. It is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah. Okay. The fifth one
Right.
is a little more on the personal side.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is regarding an incident. I don't know how many of us know this,
Hmm.
but I had put down my papers once when I was part of the marketing team.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had thought about, at that point in time, I was at a phase where I thought that nothing is going right for me.
Hmm.
I'm stuck in the wrong brand. I'm not getting sufficient opportunities. Uh, Performance is not getting by, not because I'm not doing the right things, but because the
System
brand
wasn't
is in,
cooperating.
yeah, and things like that. Yeah. And therefore, I put down my papers. I started looking outside. I found an opportunity with a very reputed company, etc. I put
Hmm.
down my papers.
Hmm.
My boss at that point in time asked me to uh, take some time and speak to some of the people in the marketing fraternity in my company
Hmm.
about what do they think of me
Hmm.
and what lies in store for me going ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thankfully I took that advice.
Okay.
And not only did I speak to a lot of other marketing leaders, I spoke to Giri, who was leading Bonvita at that point in time. I spoke to Amar,
Hmm.
who was heading strategy at that point in time.
Hmm.
And I in fact also took the time to speak to Molly, who
Hmm.
was the marketing director at that point in time.
Right.
And I did not speak to them about my offer.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to them only about what is their view of me
Hmm.
and how do they see my future in Cadbury.
Okay.
That was the two questions I asked them, and I asked them to be brutally honest with me.
Hmm.
And I was surprised by the fact that regardless of my current brand performance,
Hmm.
all of them held a very positive view of me.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I immediately started thinking about what mistake did I make.
Hmm.
Yeah. I was clear that I'm in safe hands, I'm in the right company, and I should not move out. But I also wanted to go back and check where did I make my mistake.
Mhm.
Yeah. And my realization, Sharan, was that before you tender the physical resignation by sending your mail or handing over a letter,
Mhm.
the mental resignation happens much before that.
Oh, yeah. Today it's called quiet quitting.
Yeah, quiet quitting. Yeah.
Right.
So the mental resignation happens when you've already decided in your head
Hmm.
that now I am going to start looking out,
Hmm.
or I'll seriously pursue an opportunity outside. That's when
Right.
your mental resignation has already kicked in.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, at my articulation, Molly had his own way of putting it into a 2 by 2 metric, like only he could.
Right.
My articulation was that there are, doubts that creep up in your mind all
Hmm.
the time.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, like it happens in our houses also, any area which has some kind of cobwebs, etc., creeping up,
Hmm.
if you don't clear it off,
Hmm.
those cobwebs remain and they attract all kind of dust and all
Yeah.
kind of elements.
Negativity just builds and builds.
Yeah, they just attract the wrong things.
Right.
This happens in your mind also.
True.
You will have cobwebs developing around your career and around your performance, etc., etc. And if you don't get them cleared,
Hmm.
it will attract negativity and it will lead to mental resignation.
Oh,
So therefore,
absolutely.
the lesson that I took was that as soon as I have a doubt,
Hmm.
because it is my career in the company, I have every right to go ahead and ask the responsible people
Hmm.
for clarification.
Hmm.
And to my delight, what I discovered was that managers were more than happy to see me come up and talk to them very clearly.
Hmm.
Why? Because later, when I became a manager of managers, I realized that the most difficult thing for a manager is to try and guess what is my reportee thinking, what is their mental state as of now. And I'll
Right.
be extremely lucky to have reportees who come and talk to me at the first slightest hint of a doubt. So I'm very happy as manager of managers. I'm sure therefore my managers were happy when I went and talked to them, and I maintain that habit till now. And it becomes even more important in marketing because, like I said earlier, in marketing, bozos typically have a long career as well,
Right.
because you discover bozos after a long period of time.
Hmm.
The bozosity in sales is discovered very fast.
True.
So therefore, marketers will tend to have cobwebs that
Hmm.
might not get cleared. You will not get data based feedback every month.
Right.
And hence the advice to all marketers is that whenever you feel a cobweb developing in your head, immediately go up to your reporting manager or their reporting manager and talk to them.
But I think that's brilliant and beautiful advice, Sudeep, because and thanks for sharing the story. And it's important that people hear it directly from you, as in it's because it's your personal story. Especially in today's context, we're talking about quiet quitting and all that, despite all the communication devices we use. Reaching out for help and seeking advice is something that's almost frowned upon
Hmm.
by peers, not by your seniors, by peers. And because of this peer pressure, a lot of people keeping their doubts to themselves, which ends up becoming a very negative source of energy. And that's why you see a lot of people moving within 2 3 months from one job to another. Even before they settle into one, they're already looking for another because they don't see themselves as a cultural fit in the organization they're at.
Hmm.
I think this is some brilliant advice, so thank you for sharing that. But
Okay.
I cannot accept this as a mistake. You were
No,
stopped from
no.
making it.
It was certainly a mistake. Although, with right kind of advice, I was able to correct it and I stuck on.
Right.
And I was glad that I did.
Hmm.
Um, and the next time I quit, so the only other time I thought about quitting was about whatever, a few years later.
Hmm.
And next time I quit, I did all my homework. I asked the right questions. I prepared the 2 by 2 framework, and therefore I was sure that this is the right time and the right company to quit for.
Do you remember the framework?
Of course, I did.
I think we should put it into the show notes.
I will.
It'd be good
I
for
will.
people to look at it. So if you
And
if you plan to quit your job, this
yeah, yeah,
framework should help you.
it should help. And in fact, I would urge all the listeners to possibly look at this book called Catalyst,
Hmm.
written by late Chandramouli Venkatesan.
Yeah.
He talks about this 2 by 2 metric, and specifically, he says that when you're joining a new company, the two areas you tend to ignore in your consideration is what is bad about what could be bad, or what
Hmm.
is bad about my new company, and what is good about my current company.
Hmm.
All you see is what is bad about my current company and what is good about the new one.
Exactly.
So therefore take the time and pains to find out what could be bad about your new company,
Hmm.
and then plot all of that together and then see where does the weight of distribution lie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
And
good
That's
framework.
that's so simplified wisdom. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. For marketers it should be easy, even for sales guys. So because if you can find a ASM of the prospected company or some sales
Yeah.
officer, etc. For marketers, for example, I reached out to Ogilvy and Madison.
Hmm.
Pidilite shares uh, uh, the same agencies with
Right.
Cadbury.
Right.
So I spoke to them and I understood what kind of client Pidilite is, what is
Hmm.
their strength, what are their weaknesses, etc., etc. So give me some perspective.
Beautiful. Beautiful. But no, I need one more. I need
Yeah.
five
So
proper mistakes. Give
no,
me
in
another
fact,
one.
no, these are the five mistakes actually.
Okay.
What I will do is I'll add a bonus lesson. It's not
Okay.
a mistake; it's a lesson.
Okay.
Yeah. 22nd January
Hmm.
2014.
Oh, that's specific.
Yeah. I had just moved to sales
Ah, okay.
after kind of completing my marketing stints.
Hmm.
And so 14 and 15 I was part of the sales team
Right.
in North. 22nd January 2014, the that day's brand equity edition.
Hmm.
And brand equity used to be a big thing for marketers in those period of times.
Right. It used to be separate
Yeah,
uh,
a nice
set of
four
paper. Yeah.
six page,
Yeah.
beautiful, colorful, smooth pages.
Yeah.
Every marketer would read it like Bible. It was the place to
Yeah.
gain marketing knowledge from, and if your work features there, it'll be a big thing.
Right.
They used to have this section called best versus bekar.
Huh.
They
Right.
will rate some ads as best and some ads as bekar.
Right.
So every time
Right.
you're releasing a campaign that week or the next week, you will try and find it there.
Hmm.
Most of the Cadbury campaigns used to land up in best section.
Right.
And we also thought that it had something to do with Ogilvy's relationship with Economic Times. But on a serious note,
Right.
on that particular day, on the cover page, they had covered the Gems story,
Hmm.
the entire journey that the brand Gems had taken
Hmm.
to, speak to elder kids, appraise their TG,
Hmm.
and then get into, slightly elderly advertising. And that's the line that they had started towing for a
Hmm.
fairly long time. In fact, the last TVC that I remember, they were doing the same thing while the proposition was something else,
Right.
but the visualization remains on the same lines.
Got it.
Yeah. So there was this entire nice article about it, and I was very happy to see my work getting featured there.
Okay.
And as you turn the page, there was Best versus Bekar.
Hmm.
And my last ad, Chocolates, was featuring in the Bekar section in the same newspaper.
Right.
Now it's the same guy who has done both the things, or at least was a participant in both the journeys.
Right.
So what it tells me is what our marketing director before that, Mr. Sanjay Purohit, used to say:
Hmm.
you are never as good as your last success,
Hmm.
and you are never as bad as your last failure.
Ah.
And it is important to be level-headed. And I couldn't think of a better way in which God could have given me this message than putting both my works in two different buckets in the brand equity edition of 22nd January 2014. And hence that date is etched in my memory.
Wow.
And I always remember that lesson whenever I think that, you know, I don't have my feet on the ground. I always tend to remember it.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about turning the page, right? So if you feel good, turn the page. If you feel bad, turn the page again.
Just remember the lesson. And this is what Molly used to say, that you should have your head in the clouds and feet on the ground.
I remember that. Yes. Lovely. It is, it's a, I mean, it didn't exactly go in the direction I intended it to go, but I think it is a lovely, lovely message that you've kind of delivered saying, I think we've touched upon some of the examples before, but the context in of these issues in the context of a career, I think it makes a lot of sense to marketers. and helps them realize that, see, not all mistakes are career limiting. Today, you're leading a business. So even if you make these mistakes, you still have a great career ahead. The important point is to learn from these mistakes.
Correct.
And now that you've heard Sudeep talk about his mistakes, you don't have to go, you are now forced to go looking for your own kind of mistakes and not repeat the same mistakes that he's spoken about. And I
Hopefully.
know it's more than mistakes, it's more life lessons and career lessons. I think it's brilliant for any marketer to listen to this. I think it's lovely.
Thank you, Sharan.
Thank you, Sudeep.
Thank you for listening to Corp Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at corpcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.